Alright, and now, the case of the ambushed cowboy. Through his detective agency, Encyclopedia solved cases for children of the neighborhood. Occasionally he even solved cases for grown-ups. Whether his customers were children or grown-ups, they had one thing in common. They were always alive. He never supposed that one day he would solve a case in which all the people had been dead for nearly 100 years. But that is what he did, twice, while on a trip out west. The two adventures in long-range detective work had their beginning in the Brown dining room. The dinner hour was very quiet. For the third straight evening, Chief Brown had not brought home a mystery for Encyclopedia to solve. There was nothing to do but eat. "It's time we took a vacation," said Mrs. Brown. Chief Brown agreed. "I haven't taken any time off in 3 years. We could go on a long trip." "Let's go to Texas," suggested Encyclopedia. He had just read a book called Upper Cretaceous Limestone in the Lone Star State. "It certainly is a long way from Idaho," said Mrs. Brown, and as nobody could advance a better reason for going to Texas, she began at once to make plans. 2 weeks later, Encyclopedia found himself bouncing painfully atop an honest-to-goodness Texas Mustang. That's a horse. His father was riding in front of him. The boy detective wished he had stayed behind with his mother instead. She had ridden a taxi into Fort Worth to have lunch and shop for gifts. Since sunrise, Encyclopedia, his father, and 14 fellow guests at the Badlands Inn had been in the saddle. They had paid $5 each for this tour of historic scenes of the old Wild West. "All right, folks, dismount," shouted Mr. Scotty, the tour's skinny little guide. Mr. Scotty's legs were bowed from years in the saddle. I could open an umbrella between Mr. Scotty's knees and never touch either one, Encyclopedia thought. Mr. Scotty pointed to a high rock that formed a perfect corner. "That there's the Johnny Kidd corner," he said. 85 years ago on that spot, Ringo Charlie got ambushed by Johnny Kidd." The members of the tour stepped forward. They looked at the rock, they looked at Mr. Scotty. Mr. Scotty spat some tobacco juice and continued his story. "In those days," he said, "Johnny Kidd and Ringo Charlie were feuding at the poker table. Johnny Kidd claimed Ringo Charlie kept too many extra cards up his sleeve. Johnny Kidd never complained very loud, though. Ringo Charlie was cousin to half the townsfolk, and he was said to be the fastest draw in Texas." Mr. Scotty walked down toward the high rock. "One fine day," he went on, "Johnny Kidd got fed up with losing money to a 60-card deck. So he hid behind this here rock and waited his chance." Mr. Scotty then acted out what Johnny Kidd had done so long ago. He crossed behind the high rock. "About this time of the morning, 9 o'clock, Mr. Scotty continued, "Ringo Charlie comes riding along here." Here the skinny guide rose from his crouch. He rounded the stone corner and turned and started back toward it. Now he was acting out the part of Ringo Charlie. As Mr. Scotty moved toward the corner, he squinted into the morning sun. One hand was cupped where his pistol would hang at his hip. Encyclopedia could almost see Johnny Kidd crouched behind the rock, waiting in ambush. Mr. Scotty was Ringo Charlie, riding toward him, unaware. Mr. Scotty picked up the tale again. Johnny Kidd saw Ringo Charlie's shadow coming while Ringo Charlie was still on the other side of the rock. Out jumps Johnny Kidd from behind the rock, both guns blazing. Ringo Charlie's hit, but his horse breaks into a gallop and carries him down to town. Mr. Scotty squirted some more tobacco juice. He hit a lizard between the eyes. Ringo Charlie, he said, told the town folk what had happened. A fair fight was one thing, but Johnny Kidd had taken foul advantage of poor Ringo Charlie, and Ringo Charlie was cousin to half the town. Mr. Scotty stopped talking. He started toward his horse. It was a nice effect. A fat man in a yellow shirt cried, "Well, what happened?" "Why, Mr. Scotty," said Mr. Scotty, turning. "Ringo Charlie's cousins chased Johnny Kidd clear into Oklahoma." "They should have caught him and hanged him," exclaimed the fat man. "If they had," spoke up Encyclopedia, "they've hanged an innocent man." "What's that you say, boy?" gasped Mr. Scotty. "Ringo Charlie lied about the shooting," said Encyclopedia. Mr. Scotty nearly swallowed his tobacco. "Why?" "I guess he hated to admit he'd been beaten by Johnny Kidd in a gunfight." "Appears like you're a right smart young fellow," said Mr. Scotty. "Now tell me how you can know so much about something that happened 85 years ago." Whether it happened then or yesterday wouldn't make any difference. Ringo Charlie can't lie about the laws of nature. How did Encyclopedia know that Ringo Charlie had lied about the shooting? Hold on, let me flip to page 69. Okay, solution to the case of the ambushed cowboy. Ringo Charlie had said Johnny Kidd knew he was coming because at 9 o'clock this morning his shadow falling ahead of him gave him away. Johnny Kidd had seen the shadow and jumped from behind the rock shooting. But Mr. Sky, the guide, acting out the part of the Ringo Charlie at the same time in the morning, 85 years later, had squinted into the morning sun. That proved Ringo Charlie lied. With the sun in his face, Ringo Charlie's shadow would have fallen behind him. So because he fell behind him, he would have seen him. The end.